Hello, hello, and welcome to Key Bard. I am Tembi, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with Farah Lawal Harris. Farah is a well-dressed poet, artistic leader, and breast cancer survivor who overcomes obstacles with grace. By writing and public speaking, she inspires others to do the same. Farah is the artistic director of Young Playwrights Theater, a nonprofit organization in Washington, D.C., that inspires young people to realize the power of their own voices. She is also a Kilroy's List playwright whose work has been performed at Arena Stage, the Kennedy Center's Theater for Young Audiences, the University of Texas at Austin, Roundhouse Theater, and multiple festivals and universities along the East Coast. Farah is an emeritus member of Theater Washington's advisory board and the Helen Hayes Award Adjudication Committee. She also co-chaired the 2020 and 2022 DC Theater Summits. She is a proud co-founder of the Washington, D.C.-based theater companies, the Sarkey Project and Wild Women Theater, and a three-time Individual Artist Grant Award recipient from the D.C. Commission on the Arts and Humanities. She lives her life by the following I am statement. I am divinely connected to all there is with the power to shift my energy to embody all that I am. I am love, power, resilience, compassion, beauty, intelligence, and vulnerability, ever evolving with infinite possibility. Farah gives infinite thanks to God, her family, ancestors, friends, and mentors who shaped her into the woman she is today. So if you want to learn more about Farah, you need to visit her website at farahlawalharris.com. Welcome, Farah Lawal Harris.
Thank you, Tembi. And I have to ask, do you go by Tembi now rather than
Okay. Thank you for asking me that. So because people who've known me for a long time are like, wait, have I been calling you the wrong name? It's like, no, I like to say Tembi now. Like I'm into that. That's like I'm in my Tembi era, but I answer to Tembi and sometimes I say Tembi. So
Okay.
you can call me whichever you like. You can switch it up time to time, stick with one. Either one is good to go.
Okay. Good to know, because even with my name is similar. Because Farah is an American pronunciation. My parents call me Farah. So yeah, it's an Arabic name, but only my kindergarten teacher pronounced my name like that. And then after that, everybody just called me Farah.
Coach Farah.
Yeah.
And it's cool,
like
right?
Farah Fawcett. Yeah. So
right.
Sometimes I introduce myself as Farah, but for people who know me, it's like, no, because I say Farah,
Exactly. I think, I always distinguish that from people who I know they have a specific pronunciation of their name and they do not want to hear it any other way. And there's not another way. And sometimes, because that can become a way to bring harm to people, to mispronounce their name on purpose and all that kind of stuff. I always tell people like, it's okay. I promise you, it's okay. Either way is fine. And it's not any harm to me to, pronounce it one or the other. So.
Thank you. I didn't mean to derail the interview. But...
No. This is a conversation, between you and me. So it's gonna be exactly what it is. And it's funny, another guest asked me the same question. It's like, hold up. I said, okay, let's talk about it. So no, it's no problem at all. Now, so, okay. Speaking of which, right, we know each other already. We've known each other for a long time and we know each other as artists. But I didn't meet you when you were a little girl. So I want to know, what was your exposure to the arts that made you start to think about becoming an artist later in your life?
My earliest memory of being exposed to the arts was my senior year of high school. In my English class, which was called American Studies, we would read books that weren't part of the normal curriculum and then discuss them. And sometimes there'd be a field trip attached to it. So we had read Zora Neale Hurston. I believe Their Eyes Were Watching God. And then went to see the musical Polk County that was written by Zora Neale Hurston or inspired by her life. I don't even remember who wrote it, but it was an all-Black musical in the round at Arena Stage. And I fell in love with seeing all those Black actors on stage, fell in love with the villain character and really wanted to play her. And it was played by Perry Gaffney. Do you know Perry Gaffney, the actress?
No, the name is not jumping out at me, but maybe the face.
Yeah, and David Toney was in it and Keith Johnson. But it was just amazing for me as a teenager to watch something and wish I was in it. I don't think I'd experienced that. The only time I ever experienced that was watching Lady Sings the Blues as a kid. I wanted to play that role, but I was the academic kid, So I didn't expect art to inspire me in that way, but I still remember like the song from that play. Just singing it to myself because it planted a seed that, oh, theater is kind of cool. I wasn't a
Hmm.
theater kid in high school, but that was cool.
It's interesting. I think Polk County was inspired by her. I love how you said I was an academic kid. I wasn't really thinking about the arts as a pursuit, right?
Hmm.
A lot of times I think about that, the work that we do and how we fuse the arts and the other disciplines so that young people aren't taught that art is a separate thing. And when we think about even our heritage, when you go back to the origin, art is not separate. Art is a part of function. Art is a part of celebration, is a part of culture in every way. And it's unfortunate how when we're growing up, we're taught that art is a separate thing. And you kind of like do it if you can, do it. The more money you have, the more opportunity you have. But otherwise, keep it to the side. Focus on the things that are quote unquote important. So
Yeah,
thank you for
for
pointing
sure.
that out. Yeah.
For sure.
So you had this memory, you saw Polk County, and you were like, this is something I really want to do. So this led you to what next?
It led me to asking my dad, what if I studied theater in college? And him saying, absolutely not. So I went into University of Maryland College Park my freshman year, I think as a communications major, because my dad made me pick something. He was like, you're not going to be undecided. So I never took one communications class. I was visiting all the schools. I visited the journalism school, like, do I want to do that? I visited the business school. I wanted to know what can I pursue because I wanted to explore outside of the cultural expectations, being first generation Nigerian, the options, lawyer, doctor, pharmacist, registered nurse, like those sorts of professions, engineer that were guaranteed, quote unquote, to make you money. Um,
Hmm.
but I auditioned for a couple things my freshman year and didn't get in. And was like, oh, I guess it's not meant for me. And then my
Hmm.
junior year, I met a good sister of mine, Delia Nicole, and told her I've always been interested in acting, and she was a theater major. So I know who to introduce you to. So she introduced me to Scott Reese, the former chair of the theater department at University of Maryland College Park. I took his Black theater and performance class, and that's when I pursued it. So it's the seed was planted 4 years before I actually started performing. But I think in those 4 years, I needed time to develop as a person and learn myself and also gain confidence in myself outside of just my brain. Gain confidence in my all of my facilities, not just my intellect.
Mm. And so how did you break the news to your dad?
I That's a good question. How did I break the news? I don't recall. He did come to my first play because my first play was at University of Maryland. I did the Amen Corner, and it was guest directed by Dr. Walter Dallas. Rest in peace, Dr.
Rest
D.
in peace. Yeah.
Um, but he was excited about it, I guess. But it seemed like it came out of left field for most of my family, honestly. And when I told him I wanted to pursue it, he was just like, that's ridiculous. Especially when I told him I didn't want to go to law school. He was angry. He was really mad. But it's funny because after he saw me perform, I remember we were sitting in the lobby after a show. He's like, Farah, you're actually really good. You could be on soap operas and things. Like you should really look into that. You're talented. But it just was unexpected because I didn't express myself in that way as a kid. I was always chatty. I was always a little silly, but at home, humorous, expressive, but I was celebrated for my brains more than anything. And I didn't see the connection between brains and arts. And I don't think my parents understood that connection either. They knew
Hmm.
Nollywood film stars. They knew film acting, TV, that felt legit, but like theater was kind of like, well, are you going to be a starving artist? Like, what is your plan? But
Hmm.
it all worked out. He became proud once he saw me perform, but he was not with it at all. He was not with the plan. It probably seemed like I was just being a rebellious kid, like
Yeah.
she just doesn't want to go to law school, so she's just going to pick something. But it worked out. I'm
It
still
sure
here.
did. It sure
Yeah,
did. So were very serious as a young person? Did you feel like
I
people
would
saw you as
say.
like a very serious, like not goofing around and everything. So yeah, seeing you play these
I was
different
quite
characters was
serious. I was
mm-hmm.
serious, reserved. I still am reserved to an extent today, less so after dealing with health challenges, but serious, reserved, smart, shy. Even
Mm.
though now it's funny, I'm realizing that my perception of myself as a child wasn't everyone else's perception. I had a conversation with my cousin couple, I can't remember when we had this conversation. Last time I visited her in New York. And we were talking about high school because we grew up in the same area. We went to the same middle school, same high school. And we were just talking about how we were back then. I was like, I was kind of awkward. I had my small friend group. And she was like, what are you talking about? She's like, you were one of the most popular people in school. I was like, no, I wasn't. She's like, it was more popular than you and your friends. I was like, oh. And she talked about how when she came to the same daycare as me, she told her mom, like, oh, I'm so nervous, but at least Farah is going to be there. I can hang out with her. And she said she got there and I had no time for her. So I was with all my other friends and everybody was playing with me. I was like, I don't remember that because inside I felt so shy and so nervous all the time. I was an anxious kid. I was an anxious child.
Wow, that's interesting. That gap between your self-perception and what other people saw, right? I feel
Mhm.
like that's such an interesting struggle when you talk to people. It's helpful to talk to people who knew you as a child because they help you recalibrate your self-perception, help you learn
Mhm.
more about yourself now by understanding how you saw yourself as a kid.
Absolutely.
You co-founded the Sarkey Project, which you called a theater ensemble and creative tribe, producing and developing theater through collaborative processes. What inspired this project?
It was conceptualized by a lovely person, Jessica Solomon. Jessica is an artist, an activist, a consultant. Jessica is all things. And she had conceptualized a performance devised by Black women to honor the legacy of Sarki Bartman, who, for those who don't know, she was also known as the Hottentot Venus. And she was a South African woman in the 1800s who was taken by Dutch explorers to essentially be put in freak shows. They lied that they were going to make her a star. They took her to um, England first and then Paris. She lived about 6 years after being exposed to those conditions of being put in cages and having to stand there as people gawked at her and ogled at her and threw things and shouted at her. And after she passed away, they dissected her body and put it in jars in a museum until the 80s. And it took Nelson Mandela and folks campaigning to even get her remains to come back to South Africa. I learned about her in college, so I was immediately drawn to the project. And I met one of the collaborators at church. She's like, oh, you're an actress audition for this play I'm in. And I just walked in like, okay, this sounds cool. I just finished school at University of Maryland. And I believe what Jessica was trying to do is make a show that connected that history of the 1800s to the experiences of young Black women today, to see what themes that were recurrent in how Sarki was treated and regarded, to like how Black women are objectified and regarded in society today. And that weekend of performances at DC Arts Center in Adams Morgan was so sold out and packed. We received such a robust response from our audience members that we're like, oh, so it shouldn't just be one show. We're the Sarki Project. So we called ourselves as a theater company the Sarki Project. And that show was, we titled the show Deconstructing the Myth of the Booty. And we toured it different places. We went to universities and did different festivals. And it was amazing just being able to collect a following of non-traditional audience members, Black folks who don't normally necessarily go to the theater, but because of what we were doing, they felt seen. And for me as an artist to be able to write, that was my exposure to writing for theater. My first one, because I thought I was just going to be acting. And Jessica was like, no, we're all writing. And it challenged me in so many ways as a performer. I'm not just being handed a script. I'm getting feedback from other people. It was a kind of tapestry type piece. We're dancing, we're all singing, we're all moving. There was performance art. There was a scene. One of my sisters in the group, Bina Kaide Joy, is a dancer, and she had one scene that she had constructed where she was going over her experiences as a nude art model. So she walked onto the stage, disrobed. She was naked on stage and doing the poses that she would do while she was in those classes. And she had a voiceover recorded of the things that she heard while she was posing, like a teacher saying, "See, she has an African head."
Oh, wow.
So Venus doing a pose like this, and the professor is like, so she has an African head, and Venus turns around, "What the fuck is an African head?" Like, just but yeah, just why is she drawing me in the corner of the page? Why is she drawing me so small? Or like, it's
Oh,
that
wow.
experience of how you're being viewed actively by a white audience, and seeing how people are actually drawing what they see of you, their perception of you. It was just an amazing show, and I love those women. I love them all. I'm not connected to everybody who is part of that 11 woman ensemble, I believe we started as,
Mm.
but I'm connected to enough of them that it's just like, yeah, we did some deep work. Because it started in 2008. That was a long time ago. We all
Hmm.
got together, I believe, for our 10-year anniversary, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I think it was 2018. We got together for a 10-year anniversary just to see each other and go over memories and stuff, meet each other's children for those who had kids. But
That's beautiful.
yeah, it was a lovely time. And I miss it. I miss that ensemble and that deep work as an ensemble on stage and off stage. And so shout out to Jessica Solomon because she did so many things. We took retreats together, like just the level of conflict resolution we had with each other, I've still yet seen in other organizations and groups that I've been in. The genuineness of, speaking up and supporting one another. So it was definitely transformative and kind of changed my aesthetic of how I see theater and what I look for when I see a show.
Do you think that what you gained from being a part of the Sarkey project really was not only for audiences, but do you feel like there was a certain service that this movement did for the 11 women involved as well?
For sure. And I think it served us all differently. But I think for me, I can't speak for everyone else. I learned my true potential as an artist. I learned to broaden my definition of who an artist could be because I was the only traditional actor in the group. We had folks who were performers, but who had day jobs, like my sister Margot. She's a social worker, but she is also a singer and a poet, and she was performing her poems and doing all of that. Like we had folks who had government jobs, a professor, like folks who were
Hmm.
coming from different sides of the world and like their interests, but we were all coming together, redefined what an artist is, and it built my confidence so much and showed me that okay, just because I studied acting doesn't mean acting is the only thing I'm capable of. You could learn how to do things as you go. There is where I really learned how to direct, where I learned how to produce, where I learned how to lead an ensemble, where I learned how to communicate properly with a venue, how to hire a stage manager, how to write a contract. Like there are
Hmm.
so many things. It was on the job training, and it was priceless. So for me, learning potential and learning that the art is bigger than what I read in a textbook or what was told to me in college. Yeah, because I came in not pretentious, that's not the right word, but just by the book about what acting is and how acting is supposed to be done. Because I had just come out of a program. I quickly learned, like, okay, that's not the only way to do it. Because we had audience interaction. I had never really done that at UMD. We had points where the audience would write things that we would perform,
Mm.
or we were asking the audience to cheer, like it was different, where it was just like, oh, this is not what I'm used to. So in some ways, I had to take a back seat and just observe and just trust the process. So yeah, I grew exponentially. I'm grateful. I wouldn't be where I am today if not for that experience.
Mm. That's powerful. So you're also a founding member of Wild Women Theater. So what did you learn about yourself through that journey? And was it directly following, or were they happening at the same time? What was
It was
the
directly following. So the story
Okay.
was Jessica Solomon, the artistic director of Sarkey Project, was ready to resign. She was done with the company. Initially, she was handing it over, but then when you realize that you're taking someone's baby, It's just like, oh no, this was designed for how she works and how she does things, and not realizing
Okay.
just how much she did as far as grant applications, as far as our finances, taxes. She took on a burden that was invisible to the rest of the ensemble. So, in realizing that, it was just like, you know, what if we just start our own thing? So, the five of us who wanted to start our own thing and continue performing formed Wild Women Theater. So it was a continuation of the work, but it broadened. So instead of just being about Sarky Bartman, it was the experiences of Black women and femmes in general.
Okay.
So taking a very specific inspiration point and broadening it. So yeah, we continued a lot of the ways in which we met, the ways in which we created art with each other. And I learned that running a theater company is hard work.
Mm, mm.
It was hard work because yeah, by the time we ended, there were three of us, and everyone else
Mm-hmm.
was a contractor. So yeah, like dealing with contractors, dealing with just life happening as we went, growing in our careers, the desire to have children. That's really why we shut down, because the three of us all wanted to become moms and did. But it was just like,
Mm,
okay, like without infrastructure, it's tough. As Black artists, it's hard to fund art. I learned that because the majority of our funding was through crowdsourcing. It's like you could tap
mm.
out your community. So it's just you have to get creative about where the money comes from. And that we had looked into starting a nonprofit, but then it was just like, is this really what we want? Is this the structure we want? So it's just like not everything is meant to be a nonprofit. I also learned that lesson, that it's
That's a
okay to
big
kind
one.
of, it's a huge one because
Yeah.
that's why most nonprofits fail in the first 3 years, because everything's not supposed to be a nonprofit.
Yep.
You know, like some things are meant for a very specific time frame. Because I can imagine if we had gone through that whole incorporation process, that would have been a mess. Like once we realized, like after 3 or so years, like you know what, I'm ready to move on from this. You
Right.
got a board, you got taxes, you got all sorts of things that you would have to resolve. So I'm glad we
Yep.
didn't go that route. But yeah, it was a learning experience in that regard too, and learning my ticks and how to collaborate with others. And I learned that I don't come across the best over email if I'm upset. I learned not to send emails while I'm worked up. I learned that in
Uh,
that process
so take
too.
a breath before you hit
Yeah.
send.
That I could come
Hmm.
off quite stern in writing. So it's just I learned about how I communicate and what effective communication is with others too.
So you talk about how hard it is to run a theater company and the complications of developing a 501(c)(3 and how not everything's meant to be that, right? The vision may just need to have a different shape and a different time frame of impact. I wonder, have you thought about either with Sarky project material or themes, as well as Wild Women theater material themes? Have you thought about converting those ideas into some other format now that we're really, really super steeped in the information age, right? And we have this whole period of remote work. Have you ever thought of putting something in some sort of format where people can experience it outside of the traditional theater experience?
I have. I've thought about using at least one of the poems I used to perform back then as just a written poem. I'm writing books now, so like, okay, this can go in a poetry book, in one where I talk about my journey as being a first generation African woman, because the work that I wrote specifically for the Sarky Project was some of my most personal work. It shaped how I write, so if I could spit a never ending poem, I would speak of Black womanhood. I would speak of the little Black girl, the dark skinned Black girl whose dark skinned father looked at her and said, "Here, I have a solution," handed her bleaching cream and said, like just, it was real
Mm,
specific. So it's like, okay, someone else still needs to hear these words. These are words that need to
mm-hmm,
be heard. And the thing that I learned, that I've been coming to a realization, one of my former professors turned friends said to me one day, she said that theater is very finite. It reaches such a small number of people. She's like, Farah, if you write books, I could reach the world. So I've thought about taking some of that work and putting it in written form for others to hear. And then, now the way books operate, there's audio format too, so people can listen to it. So I've thought of it that way. As far as our whole pieces, I haven't really thought of that.
mm-hmm.
Wild Women Theater, we had two shows that we had done, and then we did a few commissions also. But we did Four Women, which was a show based off of Nina Simone's song Four Women. And we brought the four women from that song, Aunt Sarah, Saffronia, Sweet Thang, and Peaches, to life. Like if they existed in real life in the 2000s, what would they look like and how would they behave? How would they move? So we did that show. And then we did one called Letters to and From Me. If you could write a letter to your younger self, what would you say? And we had our audience members before the show actually fill out forms where it was like, dear, and it was a assigned age, like there's 6-year-old me, there's 16-year-old me. And they wrote like, their sentences and we read them throughout the show. So it's like, I don't know how that would translate to a different format. It could online, I suppose, but it feels so specific to that time. So some of the pieces I look at, and I'm just like, that was a long time ago. I was in a different place in life. I was falling in love at that time. I wasn't married yet. I wasn't a mom. I hadn't encountered a lot of the challenges that I eventually did encounter in my late 20s and 30s when it came to health, So I was, what's the phrase? Something and bushy tailed. What is it called? Wide eyed
Oh,
and bushy tailed.
bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. Yep.
Back then, and my writing has changed so much too. Like even just what I considered good writing, I thought it had to be dramatic and shock value and things like that. And it's like, no, just tell the truth. Tell your truth. That's what I learned,
So it was of its time. I hear what you're saying.
A lot of it
It
was of its time.
existed
Even
when it
some of the
did.
jokes that
Yeah.
we had, like we mentioned, like Plies, Bust It Baby. Like we had,
Oh, yeah.
it's like
That's
nobody knows what that song is
in
now.
its
There
time.
were things that
Yeah.
were very specific to that time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was
Mm-hmm.
of the time, which is I think why I spoke to audiences so much. It was of the
Yeah.
time.
And what makes theater so special, right? Is that
Mm-hmm.
even though it is finite, if you're in the room when it happens, it's amazing. And you
Absolutely.
don't forget it. And maybe that's a part of it, is that it's meant to exist more as a memory than something you can keep going back to. So, but
Yeah.
I'm thrilled to know that you're moving on with books. I
Mm-hmm.
saw a little inkling of that, so I'm excited to hear more about that. So let's talk about your creative process. When it comes to writing poetry, how is a poem born?
For me, a poem is born from a question or a prompt. I love writing prompts and I do a lot of free writing. And when I facilitate as a teaching artist, I always participate. And that's where some of my birth poems are birthed, really. That's like the first stage. So fill in the blank. If I had all the confidence in the world, I would. Well, and then that starts the idea of a poem. Just finish the sentence, finish the thought. So it starts with a thought or inspiration and then goes from there. My mind tends to think in rhyme because I love hip hop. Like, if you've seen Brown Sugar and Sanaa Lathan's character, when did you fall in love with hip hop? Like
Yes.
I want to do one of those interviews. Like I should be in the opening montage because I fell in love with hip hop when did I fall? Like watching Rap City after school, seeing Nori's Yes video and
Hmm.
Jay-Z, Who You With, that was from Volume 2, and DMX, Get At Me Dog. I saw that video, that changed the game. Like it was like a hip hop head, and like mixtapes for my brother. So like I don't even know how I got there, but yeah, poems are birthed from questions and thoughts, and sometimes it's inspired by something that you've heard. Like when I listen to hip hop, because to me hip hop is poetry, and sometimes
Hmm.
there are certain artists who I just keep going back to and who I like, and I'm like, what is it that I like about that person? And I explore that for myself. Like I love Kendrick Lamar because of how he can like pull off a theme, but I also love his use of assonance, internal rhyme. So it's like as I look at that, I'm like, okay, how can I take that? I love Jay-Z's triple and quadruple entendres. How can I make something sound so simple that people think they know what I'm talking about, but it can have 2 or 3 different meanings? That's dope.
Yeah.
So it's just like
Yeah.
looking at what is it that I like about this person. I love Black Thought's knowledge and like how the books that he reads reflect and what he raps about. I read a lot of books myself. So it's just like, how can I incorporate the knowledge that I'm learning into what I'm writing so I could teach other people what I'm learning? So I'm inspired by so many things. Poems are birthed just from living and listening to others and listening to my internal voice and writing down what that internal voice is saying.
How do you know when it's finished?
I don't. It's never done. It's never really done. I still revise my poems that are on my blog. I'll read it and be like, you know what? It would be better if I use this word. I'll change it. I don't make a big announcement, but I just change the thing.
Just like,
Yeah, they're not
something
done.
about that. It's not what I remember.
Because a lot of my poems end up being used in plays. Like the way I write plays is more poetry, or the characters speak in poetry. So sometimes it's part of a play, and I decide, okay, this is part of a monologue, or this can be a piece of dialogue here. So I guess I've changed forms in that regard, that
Mhm.
a poem can become a play, a poem can become a song. I'm not a songwriter, but I feel like I could be. I've written rap for theater, like I did a
Yeah.
little hip hop
That sounds like a
play.
songwriter to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did
That
a
sounds like a
little
song.
hip hop play for the Kennedy Center, like a
A little something.
little something.
A
So
little something,
yeah,
something.
yeah, poems are birthed just from listening and life, and I don't think they're ever done. I don't, because they take on new lives.
Yeah, you said that poems can take on new lives inside of a play. Is that how you build up a play? You take ideas that you've already been thinking about and have them kind of talk to each other and see where they go? Or do you have a few ways of looking at it in terms of writing a play?
Yeah, the start of plays usually start from me hearing a sentence in my head that's in a voice other than mine, and then kind of having a B conversation. So it's like, okay, if I were witnessing a conversation, what would this sound like? And it's poetic. And sometimes when I first start, the characters are rhyming or playing off of each other. Some of these plays aren't done. It's like, okay, I wrote a scene. Let me just put that, save that, put that over there for now. But I do best with prompts. I prefer commissions, like where someone is saying, submit a proposal for this idea, or these are the parameters. I love to do that and see how I could like stretch the boundaries within a confined amount of rules. Because I think, isn't that our existence as Black women? We're put in this
Mm.
tight box. And it's like, how big can I be in this tight box? I love that
Ooh.
shit. Like, I love figuring out how big can I be in a tight box? Can I touch that
Wow.
corner and this corner at the same time? What if I rub the top up here? It excites me. I like that.
Huh. I'm thinking about what you said, as Black women being put in a box and pushing against that box because we are taught, right, in our formal theater training that drama and tension are what pull an audience in, that the more tension we create in our writing and our character development, the more invested our audiences will be in the outcome of whatever obstacles we're trying to overcome to achieve our objectives, blah, 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 right? But when you talk about pushing against that box, that's an inherent tension in and of itself. When you talk about going back to the Sarkey project and Wild Women and pushing against people's existing expectation and understanding of Black women, including ourselves, including other Black women, right? And how we teach and illuminate ourselves through that because it seems like nobody really seems to act like they want to know who we are.
Mhm.
And we're always having to tell our story over and over again almost from scratch because people act like they don't know who Black women are. So that's interesting. I love that you have that way of writing and creating. And so as an actress, what roles or role have you found the most challenging?
That's a great question. One of the roles, the first one that comes to mind is playing Clara in Native Son. That was Bigger's girlfriend in that story. So it's
Mm-hmm.
his Black girlfriend that he had. In the play version of Native Son, when we played it, I played the girlfriend. J. Ben Early was playing Bigger. And there was a scene in the play where Bigger is basically using Clara as a human shield in a shootout. And J. Ben, he's bigger than I am. So like
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
holding me from behind and flinging me here. And we have the stage gun with the blanks shooting blanks on stage. And there was one
Mm-hmm.
performance where And I died on stage. So there was that too, where I'm the one who gets shot and I drop dead on stage and I have to be dead on stage. And there was
Mm,
one day, one performance that I went backstage after and I just started weeping, just weeping. And it's because it felt real. Not that I thought I was going to be injured, Farah, the actor, but I felt so sad for this character, for this young Black woman that all she wanted was love. And she was deduced to this, to an object, by the person who she thought loved her. It broke my heart. So for me, that was hard because she was not
mm.
even the central focus of that play. There wasn't no liquor poured out for her, nothing. No one grieved her death. I died on stage and no one was sad. I think that's what impacted me. I was just like, so that was hard. And thankfully, I had cast members backstage who they didn't understand why I was crying, but they were still so supportive of me. And it was just the emotion just so big. It was so big. I had never experienced that before, where it just felt so real and just like, wow, what a pitiful condition. No one deserves that. No one deserves to die like that. I felt it. So yeah, that's what comes to mind.
You had tapped into the humanity of the character
Hmm.
in a way that it started to really affect you beyond your technique, right?
Yeah, it was sad. It was just a different type of character for me to play. I, over the years, have come out of my shell as far as showing my body. A lot of that has to do with breast cancer. Like when you have to show your breasts to so many strangers after a while, it's like, okay, whatever. But like,
Mhm.
at that time,
Here they
like,
are. Here it is.
yeah, like wearing a nightgown on stage, that was a big deal for
Mhm.
me. Like, so just even that challenge, and like I have a tattoo on my shoulder, having to put makeup on the tattoo every night. So even though it's like I probably had combined 10 minutes of stage time in this 2 hour play, there was so much preparation before, and me having to be this different type of person on stage, walking around in a nightgown is not like I'd probably be able to do that now so easily. But back then I was just so shy, and it just was not me. It wasn't how I came up per se. And like I was in a Christian sorority in college. So it definitely wasn't the image that I had like in my early 20s to do that. And now it's just like, girl, it's just a nightgown. But back then it was challenging for me. Yeah.
Mm. Currently, you're the artistic director of Young Playwrights Theater in Washington, D.C. So, in that role, what have you come to learn about young people?
I've come to learn that young people just want you to talk to them like people, that honesty is the best policy with them. They appreciate when you say, I don't know, but let's look into it together. Let's find out. They appreciate when they don't expect you to know everything they know as far as slang and references, but when you ask about it, they'll tell you about it. And how deeply like impacted they are by words of affirmation. Young people need words of affirmation. It's not enough to just show up, but to affirm them and let them know when they're doing great at something really impacts them. And you never know the impact that you'll have on a young person's life. You will never know. And you're lucky if they tell you, you know. And I've been lucky enough in
Hmm.
this world to have more than one student tell me, you know. So yeah, I love that job. I'm coming up on 12 years there. I can't believe it.
Wow,
Yeah, 12
that's pretty
years.
incredible.
So it's a lot of work with young people, hundreds of them, and some of them stick in my brain and more than others because of just the depth of time that I had with them. If I was teaching them in an after school program, for example, or mentoring them to get their play from like early drafts to being ready for the stage. But yeah, you can't walk into a working with a young person and assume anything. Definitely don't assume how smart they are or
Mm,
how
hmm.
much they've read or how much knowledge they have, and that there's more than one type of intelligence too. There are multiple
Yeah.
types of intelligences. Yeah. And they are all valid.
Yeah. You work at Young Playwrights Theater as a leader and an administrator, of course, and as an educator.
Mhm.
How do you balance those two parts of yourself in the work that you do in the organization?
Now, I feel like had you asked me that question 2 years ago, would have been a different answer. Now I approach all of it from a perspective of wellness, and not just my own wellness, but just the wellness of the space. I want to work in a space that feels well for the people that are in it. I facilitate spaces that feel well for the people who work there. Um, and feeling well isn't just physical wellness of like making sure germs aren't in the room, but like, are your needs being met? Is this a boundary for you? Is this a boundary for me? Do I need to step back? Am I the best person who should be doing this? Or should I pull in someone else who's better at this than me? So recognizing what I'm great at and what I'm not great at also helps too. And just collaboration. The way I function as a leader is not a top down way of doing things. It's this is what I'm thinking. What do you think? Okay, what if we do this? Oh, that's dope. We should do such and such. Oh, I love that idea. Okay, now we got it. Like it's almost like leading a pep rally sometimes, of just pulling the components and getting folks to be as excited about an idea and as invested as I am, being able to
Yeah.
articulate my idea to others in a way that's clear so that they can repeat it back and talk to others about it and pull people in is a big part of it as well. But yeah, wellness is at the top for me when it comes to life because it has to be.
Mm-hmm.
There's,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I've spent much of my time at YPT in a space of being unbalanced in how much work I was doing, the stress I was putting my body through without having proper stress management techniques. And the stress that some of the work honestly was putting me through. You know how it is working with young folks and they have life conditions that they divulge to you and how deep that gets.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know my limits now. I definitely know my limits and what I could take on. And even as I'm listening, it's like, okay, who can I direct you to? I can't solve that problem, but I know who can. Like, I'm gonna
Right.
direct you to this person as opposed to taking on the burden for myself to solve. I've learned that's not my ministry. I'm not the solver. I am the inspirer. I am the facilitator. I'm the person who's going to be with you in the trenches and be next to you as you march and learn how to march. And we figure out where we're going with your piece together, but I don't have to be the one to rescue you in the helicopter. I'm not the helicopter. And often when we work with young people who deal with situations, we feel like that's how we have to help them is be the helicopter. They don't want you to be the helicopter. They just want you to be the person who is facilitating that activity that is a form of expression for them or sometimes escape. Just know your role. Yeah, I had to know my role
Mm.
with young people.
Who do you write for?
Me. I write for me first. Yeah, because it would be a shame to keep the stories and the words that I have inside just buried. It's like I was just talking about this yesterday with a colleague, like the biblical story of the talents. It's like a parable in the Bible, where there's a master who gives three different servants. One of them, I think, gets one talent, one gets five, and talents are like coins. One gets 10.
Mm.
And like he comes back after a certain period of time and says, okay, what did you do? And the one with the 10 talents either doubled or tripled their money. Same with the 5 talents. They did something to invest. But the person with the
Mm-hmm.
1 talent said, oh, I know you to be hard and greedy and mean. So I just buried mine in the ground so I could return it to you. And it's like, no, because things depreciate value. Just like keeping money in a shoebox, you're not earning interest, but inflation happens. I would hate for my words to be that. Like when
Mm.
I'm gone from this earth, I don't want no poems left inside of me. I don't want no plays left inside of me, no books left inside of me. It needs to come out. I'm a
Mm.
vessel, but I'm not meant to just carry all those things. Like I will sink if I do. It's freeing to let the words out. So that's my goal. Yeah.
So for you first, but and let the chips fall where they may, but as long as it gets out of
Yeah.
you.
And also folks like me, but I write the things that I want to see and read. The stories, because I look at my existence as quite unique. There are other folks like me, but no one's lived my experiences in the ways that I have. And like even just my experience as a Black woman in this country is colored by like, yes, I'm a Black woman, but I was raised by 2 Nigerian immigrants who've been here since the 60s. I had a dad come here the year after MLK was assassinated. He came to a burned down DC. What was that like?
Mm.
And
Yeah.
to come here on student visas, that's different. you know, growing up and being bused to different gifted and talented programs. So I wasn't going to my home schools. So being put in environments where I was one of the few Black girls, even though I was like living in an apartment building with mostly Black folks, that's not the same. Having to navigate
Mm-hmm.
all those different spaces and have double consciousness from the time you're in fourth grade, that's different. So I don't often see myself in media, and I want to see myself because I grew up with a lot of folks like me, first gen kids who grew up with a different culture in their home than the culture that they lived outside of home. And it's just specific. And the experiences, I also write for the folks who need to hear those stories to keep going. It's the reason I create anything and just why I create content for, and I know we'll get to that as far as my health journey, but for folks who need to hear those stories. Because even when I Google things like Black women with breast cancer or look that up on Instagram, it's only like a couple people who come up.
Really?
Yeah.
Mm.
It's like the real pop, like you see Erica Hart, I don't know if you know her, model, activist. And but it's like a couple profiles and that's it. You see,
Okay.
yeah, so it's just like, okay, there's not enough exposure of these stories, but there's so many of us. That's how I feel, even with folks who've dealt with certain traumas. There are so many of us. So they need to read these stories too. They need to hear this. I don't necessarily think theater is the way to reach all those folks because all the all those folks don't go to theater, which is why I
Right.
write
Right.
poems and why I do
Mm-hmm.
other forms of media. But yeah, first for me and then folks who are like me. And peripherally other people are inspired too. But I'm not writing for them. It's
Mm-hmm.
a bonus.
Okay. You talked about how you share content on your social media channels, and there you've shared your journey of fighting uterine fibroids and breast cancer, and now you are cancer free. And you discussed it on your platforms, your faith in God and your vision to document the ups and downs of your journey to help other people, but also so that you don't forget what you went through, because you talked about wanting to be able to go back and see those different steps and the victories that you won and how you felt. So have you looked back at any of those videos after being cancer free? And if you have, what surprised you? What kinds of things stood out to you?
Yeah, I look at them often. TikTok reminds me of what I've posted a year ago each day. So it is such a blessing to look back. Sometimes I'm like, wow, what is that even like? Like, I don't
Mm,
remember what it felt like to just feel skin on top of my head now that my thick hair is back. But
hmm
I'm impressed by the glow and the genuineness of the smile. I'm impressed by the presence of emotion, like the ability to be present in my emotions rather than suppressing, because suppression was my modus operandi before that. Like, just push it down, don't cry in front of anybody. You have to be tough. And I didn't have the physical capacity for that anymore. I chose not to go that way. I chose not to do it that way. I chose to lean on folks and trust that I have support and that people need to hear my story and that I wasn't going through that for nothing. I knew I
mm,
wasn't going to die. I wondered at first when I got the diagnosis, but then it's like, no, this is not how my life ends. I'm not supposed to die yet. I'm not done. This is not the vision God showed me for my life years ago.
yes,
So like I haven't gotten there yet. So this is a middle chapter. So what am I supposed to learn? What is this for? So I found it as an opportunity to search for the lesson of what do I need to take out of this? And I learned how to care for myself. I learned how to use my voice. I learned how to stop code switching, to just
mm,
be as me and
hmm
operate as me in every space I go to. Of course, as Black folks, if you don't know somebody or you're going up to an office or something, but like
sure,
just be me as a leader and be all parts of my personality. I don't have to pretend to be more serious than I actually am. I was taking
yeah,
myself very seriously before and like wanting to be up here because like I'm a Black woman, people need to take me seriously. But for folks who don't take Black women serious, it don't matter what my posture is. Don't matter
that
how
part.
articulate I am. If you already don't take Black women seriously, there's nothing I can do to convince you. So I'm not
That's
gonna try.
huge. That's huge right there, right? Like that really understanding that it's not about what you do. If somebody is committed to seeing you a certain way, nothing you do is going to change that. And
Mhm.
that's just learning that is so freeing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One of my professors at UMD told me, I took auditioning, what do you call it, independent study with him. And he was very surprised by like one of my choices of monologue. He's like, why'd you pick this? And he's like, Farah, like, I feel like I'm watching a black woman play a white woman.
Mm,
This come from a white man. He kept it 100 with me that day because he was just like, when you walk into the audition room, we know you're a black woman. So how you're speaking to me now, I noticed that you put on an acting voice and you change your dialect for this play, but you could have picked any monologue for an audition. This is the monologue you picked. So what are you connecting to in this piece? Why did you pick this? I was like, you're right. Because the default is white. Especially
yeah.
if you're looking at a white playwright and they don't specify the race, you already
Yeah.
know. This isn't, yes, it could be anyone, colorblind casting
Mm-hmm.
or any race, but that's not how the world works. The context
Right.
changes, you know? So even though he said that to me years ago, it finally clicked. Where it's just like, people are going to look at you regardless. As humans, we make judgments. Within 5 seconds of meeting a person, you size them up.
Mm-hmm.
Is this someone who's worth my time? Do I take them seriously? And everyone has different standards that they're judging. Some people say, I know somebody by their shoes. I know people from their eyes. I look people in the eye when I
Mm,
talk to them. So it's like,
mm-hmm.
okay, I could see what's going on by just looking in your eyes. Are you evading eye contact?
Yeah.
Do you look dead behind the eyes? Like that's something to pick up
Yep.
on too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I avoid the folks
That's
who look
true.
dead behind the eyes. It's like I keep that moving. There's no
Mm-hmm.
spark.
Nah.
Mm,
Gotta go. You fighting something. You fighting something internal, and I don't want to be
yeah,
present for the outcome.
right, right.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Okay. So there's a video diary on your YouTube channel where you mentioned the fact that I'm sick and I still look this fucking good. I love that. I cackled when I saw you say that because it was so true. You were celebrating Black womanhood, positive self-identity, shifting the narrative from victim to survivor, which is something that you said. How do these ideas and ideals show up in your artistic and leadership work?
Mhm. I'm focused on joy, like in the work that I'm doing, focused on joy and moving through sadness, but not just presenting sadness on a plate,
Mm,
you know? And I think a lot of
mhm,
theater is sadness or trauma on a plate when it comes to Black stories. And I'm interested in the full picture. What happens after? What's the aftercare for that? What does it look like after that happens? How do you move through it? I didn't have the answers before. I still don't have all the answers. I just know what's worked for me. But I know that there is the possibility to move through hard things. So I focus on, okay, how can we inspire audience to know that you can move through hard things, or the people who I work with, that it goes beyond pain. It has to, because then what's the point if it doesn't? What are we
yeah,
doing if it's just all sad? Why then? So for me, it's about focusing on light and joy and hope, because those are the things that help me survive each day, that keep me going. And I want people to feel good after things that I present. Still hear the truth now. Don't sugarcoat stuff, but feel like, okay, there is hope. I never want to instill nihilism in audience members and other artists and young people, that, okay, just throw up my hands, it's done. Nothing we could do. I don't believe in that. There's too much messaging that tells us that we should believe that.
yeah,
It's simply not
yeah.
true. Especially like now that I've started looking through my ancestral history and learning some of the stories of my ancestors and the things that they've been through.
Mhm,
I've been through, but I've had I have more than one ancestor who has been captured by slavers on the West Coast, captured as
mm,
slaves, and then released before they made it. um, had like outside of Africa.
Oh my gosh.
Doing history. That's wild. I couldn't imagine being captured and being a slave. One of them as a child is 12 years old, one of them is an adult. What? You living your whole life and then you're on a boat? How in the world? Like, I can't even conceptualize that. So
Mm-hmm.
to know that, like, that's in my bloodline, this is light work.
I know that's right.
It's light work. Like,
Yeah.
they've already, like, I feel the tingles as I say it. Like, the survival is in me. And I want
Mm,
everybody to see that sense of survival within themselves, to feel empowered that there's something that you could pull on that is greater than yourself. And, I'm not an evangelist or anything like that. I talk about God a lot. Because for me, God is real, but I'm not the
mm,
type, and I have to share that. That is part of my journey, part of the promise I made to God. That's why I started sharing my journey. Like, okay, I know I'm going to be blessed. I promise to share so other people can have the keys to know how to be blessed too. But yeah, there's something greater. And that's what I want people to feel, and that they could be part of that if they
mm.
so choose, you know?
We talked a little bit about self-care earlier. You said how it's a really important part of your healing process. How do you balance that with your role as an organizational and community leader? You have these broader, bigger roles. Even as a wife, a mother, you
Mm-hmm.
have all of these different roles. How do you balance that self-care, especially now on the other side of such a big journey?
It's challenging. It's
Yeah.
challenging, but rituals help me. Just like habits, having habits that I keep up. And they're simple things, but like when I wake up in the morning, I stretch for at least 5 minutes before I get out of bed. That is a stretch, and I pray. Just okay, check in with myself. What hurt? Does anything hurt today? Okay, I need to be more gentle with this shoulder. Okay, something going on with this hip right here. And I thank God, like I'm here. Okay, what's this day for? I have another day. So clearly, how can I serve? Like just so
Yeah.
asking myself, how can I be of service is another. Um, Meditation, speaking up for myself. So even interrupting a meeting to say, can we take a break if it's going too long? I need a bio break. Y'all can go on, but I'm going to the bathroom now. Like I'll be back. Uh,
Mhm.
yeah. And knowing that every day looks different and being okay with that. My energy is different every day. I don't force myself to do things where my energy is not. If there's a deadline, okay, I'll make myself do it. But for the most part, if I'm not feeling it or something is stopping me, I'm communicative about that with the folks who I work with what my challenges are, and I talk it through to be like, how can we solve this together? So it takes a level of openness with my family, openness, and openness to feedback too, and to other folks' ideas, and being okay with things not being perfect all the time. Like sometimes good enough is all right.
Mhm. That's a
I
fact.
used to have such a hard time delegating because like it's not going to be done with the same level of detail that I would do it. But guess what? Everything doesn't need that level of detail. Sometimes you
Mhm.
just need a reserve sign on a chair. You don't have to be the one to type it.
Right, that's
Like
true.
a warning sign on the outside of the door. Okay, I wouldn't pick that font, but cool. Like,
Right, right. Does it still say warning? Can people still read it? Okay, good enough.
right. Yeah. So just
Yeah.
picking my battles, and communication is number one with my family, and being open to feedback from others. And also when I'm in spaces, giving my undivided attention, trying my best not to stay divided. So if I'm in a meeting with somebody, doing my best to not be checking email in the middle of a meeting, or on my phone while I'm talking to my husband or my son, or even just fiddling with things while I'm on phone with my sister, like, because I have ADHD. That's hard sometimes. Sometimes you start
Mm.
doing something and it's just like, what am I doing? Like, how did I end up down this rabbit hole? Where I'm like
Mhm.
so deep into the Kendrick Lamar and Drake beef or whatever, like whatever the thing is. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Like,
just the
bring it
way.
back. Come back.
Yeah, and I
What's
have the
more
things
focused?
that keep me aware, and I'm open about those things. My yoga practice, my meditation, breath work. I also listen to the same books over and over on Audible as
Mm,
reminders. So I kind of have books that I listen to on repeat. I listen to the Four Agreements probably once every 2 months, just to remind
mm,
myself, especially if I feel myself out of alignment or there's something I'm struggling with. It's like, okay, I know what book I need to read now. I need to re-listen to Power of Vulnerability. Or, like I'm at this phase where I really need to take action on my goals. I'm going to listen to The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks again. Or I'm struggling. Okay, Life Was Never Meant to Be a Struggle by Stuart Wilde. Let me listen to that. It's only 45 minutes. So, like, I have
mm.
my resources. I have a menu of things to take care of myself. And some of them involve other people. Like, let me sit down and watch a movie with my child. Like me and Jameson, my son, I got him into Martin. So like we'll just watch a
That's so cute.
he cracks up. I did not know he would get the humor or like even be into it. Like he enjoys watching Martin with me. So it's just like
Ah,
little
that's
things like that.
beautiful.
I'm just like,
Yeah.
okay, if I could give my child at least 20 minutes of just me looking him in the eye without being worried about my phone or what else is going on, that feeds him and it feeds me, you know, and not spreading myself too thin, you know, being okay with saying I thought I could do it, but I'm tired.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
not being
accepting when,
disappointed in yourself, right? I mean, like,
yeah,
I couldn't do 12 things today. I could only do 8.
mm-mm. And just listening to the
Hmm.
body. Some days it's just not happening. It's like, okay, that's the type of day it's going to be. Let me figure out how I can still be useful with this level of energy. Yeah.
What do you hope future generations will take away from your work?
Mm-mm. I hope they will take away that what doesn't kill you refines you,
Mm,
and what
wow.
doesn't kill you refines you. Right? I feel we're born as coal. We all have the potential to be diamonds. And like the life and challenges that we go through are a refinement process. And not everybody's gonna sparkle. Some days you won't sparkle at all. Some people don't, unfortunately, live long enough to be able to sparkle. So if you have the opportunity to sparkle a little bit and you get to see that reflected in somebody else, see someone inspired by something that you said or done, take it in, enjoy it. Like that is such a blessing, So just look at these challenges as part of the story, and not that like one needs a bunch of traumatic things to be a good person or a strong person, but you're not alone in anything that you're dealing with. There is no such thing as like, I'm the only person on the earth who's ever dealt with this problem. Wrong,
No,
wrong.
no.
Shout out to
Yeah.
rest in peace, Charlie Murphy,
Hmm.
but wrong. Like,
Hmm.
that you're never alone, that there's always someone who shares your story. And that's why I share the variety of stories. And I have things that I haven't even shared. Like even when it comes to my health journey, living with chronic pain is something I don't speak about often, but I've had chronic pain for a long time, but just certain things I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I should talk about that and share that with folks. I don't often
Hmm.
speak about ADHD and how I manage it because I'm still learning. As someone who has all the adult ADHD and didn't learn till mid 20s that that's what's been going on my whole life, is like, okay, I haven't really figured that out yet. But as I learn, I'll share. So it's just like there's never anything that you're going through that you're the only person experiencing it. There is power in telling stories, and there is always joy if you search hard enough for it. There's always joy. You see people who've gone through some terrible, look at the folks, even I love like looking back at folks from South Africa and how they protest and how there's still music and beautiful
Hmm.
song. And it's just like, how can that coexist with the level of violence and hatred that they're encountering? It's like it feels like those two things don't go together, but they do. Because yeah,
Yeah.
there's
It,
always
it's
an
it
aspect of joy. You have to
right.
seek it
And
because otherwise, what's the
mm,
point?
right, not internalizing something that's outside of you pushing against you, right? Like not taking that in and letting it become a part of you, but resisting it and at the same time preserving that joy.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Wow, you dropped some gems on us today, Farah.
Yeah.
It was pretty incredible. I'm
Thank
so
you.
grateful that you took the time to talk with me today for Keyboard, and I'm hopeful that we get to check in with you down the line and see, what's changed, what's remained, what have you learned, what have you seen?
I would love that. Yeah, I really
Yay!
would. Thank you for having me.
It
And I
was
hope that
my
whoever
pleasure.
listens to this gets at least one thing out of it that they can apply to their life or to inspire somebody else that they know who might need a word.
Me too. You can count me as the first.
Mm, I received that. Thank you, Fambi.
Yeah, of course. Love you, Fair. Thank
Love
you.
you too. Take care.
All right. Until next time.
Keyboard is produced, directed, and hosted by Timby Duncan. Theme music by Psycho Sid. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe or follow and leave us a review or give us a rating. Your support helps Keyboard reach more listeners, and it means the world to us. Episodes drop every Tuesday. Tell a friend, tell your mama now.